Now, the first question that I want to ask this guest on the Most Serious podcast today is: are you a philosopher turned computer scientist or a computer scientist who turned philosopher?
Man, Ripu, that will be a hard line to draw, to be honest. I think the part of me who was just a philosopher or just a computer engineer has already died. I mean, it's just there is murky waters now. But yeah, I'm a culmination of all of it. Yeah, that's the answer. That's the honest answer.
We were thinking of many topics, and Chetan is one of those people whom I think there are a plethora of topics you can talk to, and he always has something to say. He always has an insight and opinions and just information on most of the topics. But we thought ki aur kya cheez is, so interesting in a sense that you can have so many different opinions, you can have so many theories on it, and that's the concept idea of God. And last episode also I was talking to Dr. Vineet Agarwal on a Hindu god Hanumanji, and we thought of ending, having a conversation in which we can discuss God. What is, what is God, who is God is another question, but what is this word called God and where does it come from? And Chetan, just blow us away with your knowledge.
I'll try my best to. Yeah, I think whenever we are talking about the idea of God now, I think now that we're talking about it in 2023, and I'm assuming everyone who's listening already has an idea of God in their minds, right? I don't have to put it forward. It's already implanted into almost everyone's mind. So the way I like to start that conversation is centered around the idea of what is not God. मतलब क्योंकि what I understood, all of the wisdom I gained from books, meditation, and all that jazz, was that if you really want to get a glimpse of reality, you have to unlearn everything you have been taught about God. And this is actually a quote from a Christian book, I believe. There's a friend of mine who forwarded it to me, and it's so true. I mean, and this is true not just about the idea of God, it's true about the idea of a lot of different things in our lives. Truth evades us because we think we already have it. And in that sense, to actually get to the truth, you have to unlearn those filters. You have to unlearn that idea that is already implanted in you. So if we are approaching the idea of God, I would start with talking about what is not God. And okay, murky waters, let's dive into them. So I think people can use different kinds of words about the idea of God, but I think generally almost everyone has the idea of God as a creator. It could be that you talk about, let's say, Hindu gods, so there are different supreme beings, but then even they bow down before the God, right? Or a God. So the idea of the supreme God always in, I think every religion has centered around the idea of there being a creator. There being a creator who's created everything, who's managing everything. And to take it even slightly deeper, the idea is the creator away from the creation. So there's a God who has created this world and is away from this world, right? I think, if I'm being honest, that is the idea of God that I always had in my mind while I was growing up. Even though being brought up in a Hindu family, this is not the idea of God as such in Hinduism, but that is God whom we worship. जिससे हम डरते भी हैं. There's an element of fear to it. There's an element of worship to that God. It takes different forms, but at the core of it is the idea of the creator away from the creation, who's created everything, who's all knowing, all powerful, and who manages everything too, right? Now, wo idea, I think it's an idea and it's not true. And I think there's a very simple way to think about it. So let's say you say there is a creator. There is a creator away from the creation. And let's say the answer is yes, okay, there is a creator. Shouldn't the next question be who created the creator? If you're talking about things being created, there is supposed to be that question. Why stop at the first recursion? Okay, so let's say you say, okay, there's another creator above that, and that is the God. But then the question still remains, who created that creator, right? So at some point in this recursion, you will end up saying that this creator just exists, right? You will have to say that, that is God. Now, if you say that, you're basically subscribing to the idea that something can exist without there being a creator, without there being the need of a creator to create it. Something can exist, right? You're agreeing there, right? If you
Yeah.
say there's a creator who can exist without there being being a creator above him, you're saying something can exist without there being a creator. Why didn't you start with that idea, right?
Uh, no, I'm not following up this. Like you're saying
No,
that you're saying that why don't we start with the idea of believing that there could be some things that exist without them
not
being
some things,
created by someone.
everything. Yes,
Oh,
everything. Life in general, life with a capital L. We created the idea of there being a creator, right?
yeah,
And then we said this creator just exists, right?
yeah.
Why not start with the idea that this thing itself just exists,
Oh, yeah, that's
right?
interesting.
And see, why I'm saying that is because um see, whenever we are talking about God, whenever we are talking about religion, it's almost always that if you have that conversation with your friends, your colleagues, or anyone else for that matter, I'm pretty sure the end result of that argument is going to be, you have your opinions, your beliefs, I have my opinions, my beliefs, let's just leave it at that, right?
Yeah,
That's it, right? that
yeah.
that is the only level moral ground that we achieve in a normal conversation. And I believe that to be a dishonest answer, man. Because see, there are some things that are subjective truths. Like, for example, you might say you might say jazz music is better than rock music, and I might
Yeah.
say the opposite. Both of those are subjective truths. For you, it is better. For me, it is not, and that's fine, right? But something as universal as God should not be a matter of personal opinions. If all you have is
Mm.
personal opinions about God, you have that. You have personal opinions, but you do not have the truth, right? God, the idea of God itself is supposed to be an objective truth. It's not supposed to be a matter of opinions. जब आप opinions पे आ गए, that is going to be a matter of belief, right? And belief ऐसा हो जाता है कि I'm switching between Hindi and English, but
Yeah.
just coming out.
Hmm.
Belief is something that I think somewhere deep down, if you're believing in something, if you to believe in something, somewhere deep down you already know that it is false, because you have to put a belief on
Uh,
it. You,
okay.
you don't know the truth about it, right? You don't know the truth about it, but you have to believe it. That word itself, the word of belief, I mean, I'm not totally against it, but I hope you're getting what I'm trying to get at. I'm
Yeah,
trying
yeah,
to
yeah, of course.
get to objective truths, right? God, the idea of God is supposed to be an objective truth, not a matter of personal opinions, right? So
But let me
that
let
is
me let me just stop you there and just wanted to
mm,
ask, like, who gets to decide that if this is the objective truth? Like who will be the, like, do we as a society, or do we just
mm,
as a group of people commonly agree that this is the objective truth? Now everyone will have their challenges and, you know,
mm,
their opinions against this also. Like, who gets to decide when you're talking to a bunch of people?
mm. It's always been us human beings, man. It's always been us human beings, and we will have to see, there are some things that are objectively true, in the sense that I am here in Bangalore right now, you are in Gurgaon right now. It's
Yeah.
not a matter of subjective opinions. It's not a matter of
Ah,
people
yeah,
agreeing
yeah,
that
of
I'm in
course.
Bangalore or you are,
Yeah,
right? It's just true, right?
yeah.
It's just basic, I would say basic logic or basic gyan or whatever, but it's just basic logic. People don't have to agree that I'm in Bangalore and
Mm.
you're in Gurgaon. We
Yeah.
are in Gurgaon and Bangalore, right? So something that is objectively true is objectively true. But to answer your question that who gets to decide, I would say that it's always been us human beings. There is no one coming from outside and telling us that this is what is true, this is what is false, right? So it's always been us human beings. It's always been two people or multiple people sitting down and talking about life and everything else, and coming up with answers, and then subjecting it to other people, subjecting it to maybe an honest and open conversation. And if something new comes out, something new comes out, that'll be the truth then, right? That'll be the objective truth. So we need to be open to more ideas, right?
Yeah, that's
You
very
getting what I'm
important.
saying, right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, of
So
course.
that's basically it. It's always been as human beings, and there are things that are away from subjective opinions. जैसे मैंने Bangalore, Gurgaon, the example, it's not a matter of opinion, right? Those words are a matter of opinion. You call this Bangalore or Bengaluru, you call that Gurugram
Yeah.
or Gurgaon, etc. Those words don't matter, but there is a reality to it which is not subject to opinions, right? That is that is where the conversations around God should go towards. While usually, if you're talking about God, it's like a Muslim guy will say, I've read this in the Quran. A Hindu guy will say, I've read this in I don't know which book. A Christian would come over and say, I've read this in the Bible or whatnot, right? And then all of the arguments that come out are mostly arguments from authority. It's like, I have read this in my book, and my book is what has said the truth. So this is the truth. Agree to it. Right? That is not how you reach objective answers. That is not how you have honest conversations either. Right? So that is why, from my honest perspective, whenever I start a conversation about God, I started from the idea that I know it's 2023. Almost all of us have very deep rooted ideas and beliefs and opinions about God. So let's try and unlearn them first, and then see what can really be God, what can really be creator, right?
But don't you think that there's value in, like, so this brings me back to the whole idea of maybe why did almost everyone, since you're saying like it's 2023, everyone has some opinions, everyone has some things associated when they hear the term God. So don't you think there it is it is a function of this conditioning that people sought value in that, having that opinion when you hear about God, or maybe having that certain level of information or association once you hear the term God? So like there must be some value that also happens. Of course we can unlearn and then maybe try to reach out for more answers, but do you think that just by being present in the system, that everyone gets their first input insight about God from some places? But of course I guess that's the journey that everyone starts from, and then maybe through the realization of, or maybe through the curiosity of, now all of the people are not as curious as maybe philosophers were. And we were talking about this only earlier, that how philosophers actually do end up spending their life so differently, and life maybe has a very different meaning when it comes to philosophers. Like you and I, maybe we view life as something else, and for them it's a whole different experience. What do you have to say to
that's
that?
true. That's very true, man. I mean, there is definitely value in the idea of God that we all live by, right? There is value to be had from scolding a child and saying that if you do not behave in such and such a manner, such and such a God will do such and such a thing to you. There is value to be had there for sure, right? You can put people in line, you can align them by certain values, which are not all bad, right? But then look at it the other way as well, man. Those are also the things that limit us, right? Those are also the things, for example, if I say, if you subscribe to the idea of God with the idea that there is something to be feared from, which is what happens with, I won't put a number to it, but majority of people, right? Everyone fears that idea of God. You make yourself vulnerable to be exploited by so many people who are just waiting for the opportunity to do that, right? And if I care about you, man, I can tell you that what you are fearful of is not true. I mean, now it's up to you. Maybe it's up to our society as a whole to adapt to this truth. But if I care about you, if I love you, I will have to tell you what's true, right? And then we'll figure out how to put that into utility. But what's true is true. And while there is uh, while there is a utility to be had out of what is false, what is limited, I would not use the word false, I'll just say limited. There is utility to be had from what is limited, but utility is not really the test of truth, right? If something does not seem to be useful to you, maybe it's just how we have designed our lives, that even the truth is not practical anymore, right?
Can you double
Now,
click on that and like explain what you're saying?
Yeah. I'm trying to say that utility is not the test of truth, right?
Okay, what does that
it's
mean?
like, that means if something is true, it's not necessary that it will also be useful to the person to whom it's being told, right?
Of course,
Because
makes
like you
sense.
said, we all view life from different angles, right? Let's talk about, let's say, the Maslow hierarchy of needs. There is a hierarchy of needs that all of us have. If there is someone whose basic needs are not being met, this conversation to them is absolutely worthless. It's useless.
Exactly. Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Right? But that does not mean we are not talking about the truth, right? It does not mean that what we'll arrive in this conversation is not true. Correct? To that
Yeah.
person, it might seem that it's useless. Don't even talk about it. But it does not mean that this is not true, right? And now I'll also extend that a bit. When that person will come up in that pyramid of hierarchies, when that person will have his or her basic needs met, then maybe this truth will become useful also, right?
Mm.
So that is why the human endeavor should always be to speak up and talk about what is true rather than what is only useful. There is utility to be had in talking about things that are only useful and practical, right? But there's also a need within us to talk about things that are just true, and then see where is the utility in it. And I think there's a lot of utility to be had in this conversation, in getting to the idea of God, which was actually originally being transpired to us.
What do you
Mm,
think that like everyone has, you know, I kind of find it very fascinating that almost everyone was born with a certain sense of curiosity, and that is
mm,
kind of evolutionary also. That has been an aspect which led us to us getting from 3,000, 5,000 years ago to till here, and how
yeah,
we've
yeah,
adapted and how we've grown as
mm,
a species.
yeah, yeah,
So this curiosity, I've always wondered that some people, of course, follow up more on it. Some people go to taking their curiosity to creativity. I think there's a huge correlation
yeah,
between those, because you only want to
mm, mm,
wander into dangerous new territories only if you're curious. And that
mm,
sometimes
mm,
leads to being super creative. Like an artist, maybe in the search of creating great art, they
mm,
end up creating creativity and curiosity, they go
mm,
hand in hand.
yeah, yeah,
So what do
yeah,
you
yeah.
think is like, is it tied down to people being more curious, to tending them to kind of have that ability to create more, or to be in more touch with their artistic side?
That's a bit of a segue. I think
What does
yes,
it,
it
what
is.
does segue mean? I'm sorry.
Segue means that if you are on a road, you tend to take a direction away from it. So, I mean,
Oh,
we
okay.
were talking about the idea of philosophy and God, right? But yeah, this is a segue in
Yeah.
that sense. But I will touch upon it. Um, yeah, I think, see, it depends on the life situation you are in as a person. Like I just mentioned, if your basic needs are not being met, you don't give a damn about the curiosity that is arising in you about life or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Roti kapda makan chahiye, and that's basically it, right? Now, see, what I deal with when I call my channel the Unlearning Playground and talk about unlearning a lot is that because we have almost all of us have operated at that level at some point in our lives, we get used to that idea. We get used to that this is all we have to do. This is all what life is all about. You know, and we tend to behave in a manner as if those basic needs have not been met even now. And that's
Hmm.
that's how we behave throughout our lives. So even if there is curiosity
Wow.
rising within us, even if there is a certain sense of there is more to life and all of these questions coming up within us, we tend to feel कि नहीं यार, this is not the right time, this is not the right time. अभी तो
Hmm.
मुझे और पैसा कमाना है, अभी तो I have to do more, I have to travel more, and I have to do all of those other jazz. And उसके बाद I'll act on these thoughts, उसके बाद I'll act on those curiosities. And that may be true for you, that may be true for you. Cannot put an objective number to it ki once you're
Yeah.
25 you should be talking about curiosity and whatnot. But the idea is that more often than not it is us ourselves who are restricting our own curiosity, right? So it could be your life situation, but it could also be your own ego, your sense of I, what you identify as. And us wajah se we don't get to act out on, let's say, the deepest things that move us, and that is where art comes from, right? What
Hmm.
moves you
Yeah.
comes out in the form of poems, it comes out in the form of books for some people, comes out in the form of YouTube videos for some people, and etc., right? So
Sometimes I feel that
mm,
this part of like what makes an artist is maybe them expressing what they actually feel in a manner which
yeah.
is accessible to everyone else. And
mm,
it sometimes it feel that as a society now, people are more conditioned to suppress or to not cater to that part of them which kind of makes them stand out of the crowd, and everyone is almost
and
kind of losing their own
mm,
uniqueness in a sense that they don't even want to show it, they don't want to display it, and they're too scared because of the judgment of, and the judgment also comes from, like, again, that
people like
I don't
us.
know. Yeah, of course,
It
it
comes
comes
from
like
everyone.
it comes from everyone.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and one thing that we can circle back to, this is brilliant, man. Where does that judgment come from? I'll go out on a limb and say that it mostly comes from the idea that you were talking about in the very beginning when we started our conversation. We tend to feel there is no utility to be had in doing this, because the utility that we want to see is all the practical, how do you make money out of it, how will you
Yeah.
climb up the social ladder and all of
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah,
And
of course.
art does not directly give you that utility, right? Writing poems,
Hmm.
writing books does not directly give you that utility, right? And that is why y- one is that you will be judged by other people and therefore you repress those thoughts. The other is also you yourselves might not be seeing any utility to be had in trying to express yourself. Right? It's a
Yes,
double-edged sword
yes.
already. You might be restricting
Actually,
yourself. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Don't you think that,
Mm,
how are you so cognizant of these biases that you might go on? Like, I really like the way you just put the situation in two perspectives. It could either be
mm,
this, and it could be
mm.
either you not finding it. Because sometimes it's almost like the communication is always happening from outwards to inwards, and it's almost like the
Yeah.
world is telling me not to follow up on my passion,
Mm,
or the world is telling me to
yeah.
go get money. But
Mm,
maybe you
yeah.
don't sit with yourself and identify that I am kind of
Mm,
restricting myself to this worldview and
yeah.
not
Yeah.
entertaining the other, because of so many
Yeah.
biases that we've accumulated.
Yeah. And that's mostly the case, man. And you know what? I'll tell you why I can say that with authority. Even if the outside world is saying all of those things to you, to act on those things is a choice that you are making in the moment. It's your
Hmm.
own choice. Ab, people can debate that till the end, till they're blue in their faces. Ki, nahi, this is not a choice. I am in this way because I was born this way. My parents conditioned me this way, etc. But almost all of that is a story. It might be true, but it's a story. Hmm. And now, whatever has led you to April 2023, whatever has brought you up till here, is a part of that story, and there could be so many external people to blame for it. But whatever happens from here on onwards can be your own choice. You know, that is why I can say it from authority. Ki, even if there are other people telling you not to do all of these things, right? You acting on that is a matter of choice. Even if you did not realize it till now, it is a matter of choice from now on from you, right? And what I mean by all of that is ki, the only action item you can draw from these two perspectives that we talked about, whether it is the external world restricting you or whether it is you restricting yourself, you can only act on your own thoughts and actions, right? You cannot control the other people. No one can,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that will never happen for anyone, right? Talk about anyone who has followed their passion or had courage to go out on a limb and do things that other people weren't doing. Do you think the external world was catering to their ideas initially? Of course not, right? It happens for no one. But what distinguishes people who end up following their pursuits is that they chose to do that despite of the external conditions, not because of
Yeah.
it, right?
It's a
If the
conscious
external
choice.
conditions, it's a conscious choice. If the external conditions were suitable, eh, almost a lot of people, a lot more people would have done it. So it's a good way to actually approach it, right? My idea is that the external people in themselves should try and let other people express themselves, right? Not hold their judgments about others too much. But that is kind of a utopian idea jo kabhi hoga nahi, right?
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
more than the external world, your actions should only be derived ki what can I do in the moment, right? Let go of others. Despite of others, do what you want to do, right?
And maybe this is the filter which, like, why this is not a utopian world is, maybe this is the filter, this is the price that you have to pay in
Hmm.
case you want to express yourself at that level.
Yeah.
If maybe this is that filter that.
And that is what makes the utopian world for you. That is what makes the world subjectively utopian for you. There is never
Yeah.
going to be an objectively utopian world. At least I
Ah,
don't
of
think so,
course. Yeah.
right? But subjectively, for you, you can make us a utopian world for you, right? And that involves not just the goody goody pleasures that we imagine कि यार utopia हो गया तो we're all sitting in the garden and eating fruity apples और सब बहुत बढ़िया चल रहा है. That's not what life is anyway ever going to be, right? It's always going to be sine curves. So you go up, you come down, you go up, you come down, and you accept this as a fact of nature. You accept this as a fact of life. And act on your deepest thoughts, act on your deepest actions, and keep your mind open. And that's subjective utopia.
Can you tell me more on, because I love this. I am taking these two words with me for post this
Hmm,
conversation as well, and I'll try to maybe
hmm,
think
hmm,
more about them, which are truth and
hmm,
utility, and the difference
hmm,
between them. Because it's significant, and it doesn't hit you till you consciously think about it. Like for me,
hmm,
it was
hmm,
almost synonymous before thinking about it in the search of truth, that truth is essentially useful only, and that
hmm,
truth and
hmm,
utility are not correlated as much as I think. So
hmm,
what do you
hmm.
think is a man's basic need or search or the urge to go out and create, or be just curious about? What is the urge? Is it a man's search to find meaning, truth, or is it to find utility? What are we trying to find?
Hmm. Yeah, I don't think there's an objective answer to it. Aise,
Okay.
we can build stories about it, right? It'll be a
Hmm.
story. I can tell you that what people are looking for is, let's just say, actualization, enlightenment, and etc. All of that is true, but that can look different for different people. So in this regard, I would not want to go into object as if there is some objective reality to it. I would rather say it depends on the person, right? Which is why going within and understanding your own person is very important. What do I
Hmm.
mean by that? Dekho, you wanted to talk about truth and utility, right? If I tell you that such and such is a truth, right, you might find zero utility in it. There is another person who might be sitting right next to you who might find a lot of utility in it, right? What is the difference? The difference is your I in the sense the letter I, your ego, what you identify as, what Ripu understands himself to be, what Ripu understands life to be, right? And उस filter से होके everything goes, even whatever is true, whatever you find out to be true just now, that is the filter that it goes through. Correct?
Yeah.
Right? In one essence, I'm trying to say that you see the world as you are, not as the world is. Right?
I love this quote.
Hmm?
Yeah.
Yeah, everything goes through that filter, which is why the first job of actually growing up, of becoming an adult, of actually trying to go towards what is true, is to go within, understand this I, understand these filters that are pre-installed in you, got installed in you while you were getting conditioned by so many things, and get installed in you as and when you keep on going through life, right? This is a continuous process. But becoming aware of all of that is step number one to actually getting to what is true, even. Because for all you know, there could be a truth right in front of you, but you might be rejecting it only because you think कि नहीं, this is not true. There's this filter in front of you. वो जैसे example देते हैं ना कि this donkey who's being carried forward by his master, there is, he
Oh,
does not
okay.
see
Yeah, they
anything
have
away
these
from this, right?
blinds. Yeah.
Yeah, you cannot see away from this particular angle. Now it might seem harsh to people that I'm talking about donkeys and them in the same line, but what I mean to say is, I think you understand, right? If this is a filter in front of you, you cannot see anything else. And to make you see anything, to make you see the utility in even the truths that we're talking about, first these blinds have to be removed. That is step number
Hmm.
one to growing up, right? If you do that honestly, it's an uncomfortable process, man. Getting to know that you yourself are wrong, you yourself are limited in what you
Yeah.
find to be absolutely right. Talk about any person who's very religious. If I was to talk to them about God in the way we talked about initially, it offends, I'll put a number to it, 99.9% of the people.
Hmm.
And why does it do that? It's only because they have subscribed to that opinion so much that they don't even want to listen if it could be wrong. And it hurts us. It hurts
Yeah.
us ki, you're kind of hitting me. You can use different words. तुम मेरे religious sentiments hurt कर रहे हो, or you're hurting my family's sentiments or whatnot. It's actually your own ego. I'm not hurting
Hmm.
any nationalistic sentiment or anything else. It's your own ego that is getting hurt. And you have to grow up to see that that is what is happening with you. But almost all of us don't want to do that. But almost all of us have to do that.
Yeah, it's almost one of those. See, like I sometimes feel it's very hard for you to sell meditation in that regard also.
Mm,
Because it's
mm,
one of those, you'll do it once and then you'll realize the importance of not doing it all along. you'll see like you'll
Yeah.
realize ki how much you've missed out on. Maybe that's
Yeah.
the again trade-off. Once you kind of realize that you're once you start
Mm.
being more open to ideas, more open to life,
Yeah.
at that moment only you realize that why you should have started doing this very earlier. But till that point,
Yeah.
because you're not able to see the world in that manner, it's very hard
Yeah.
for you to kind of open yourself up and be vulnerable.
Very true, man. Very true. But then anyone who actually believes that, ऐसा लगता है ना कि if you are maybe, let's say you're already 30 or 40 and now you're saying, yeah, I'm already too late. What is the need now? What is the utility now? Now that we're using that word, what is the utility now? I'm already 40. I'm already married, I have kids and whatnot. The idea is that जब जागो तब सवेरा. Whenever you wake up, that is the morning. You can still choose to wake up, and the remaining, even if it's just one more year of your life, that remaining 1 year of your life could be very different compared to what it would have been if you weren't awake, right? So, see, whatever has got you till April 2023 has already happened. What happens from here on onwards is going to be a matter of choice for you. And you can choose to be awake at this moment. And that is all that matters now. Ho gaya. 40 years, 50 years, 60 years, everything has gone by. Whatever is up, whatever will happen now, all that matters is this present moment, this conversation that we're having right now. That's all that matters. Baki sab story hai, right? So that is what you have to unlearn.
So see, but like as we're nearing the end of this episode, I came to remember this one thought that I was having recently. It was like when we quantify life, we say my life had so many days or so and so years, and divide that by 365, or like you get how many days you've had and things like these. So now I also thought that is it I had so many days in my life, or I had life in so many days. It's kind of which sentence are you saying? आपकी जिंदगी में इतने दिन थे या दिनों में उतनी जिंदगी थी, मतलब it's one of those.
So this is actually, like I mentioned, right? It's a video that is going to come out on my channel, but so be it. Let's have the most serious podcast habit first. So what I'm talking about is कि there are 3 perspectives of looking at life in general. बहुत ही broad spectrum लेते हुए. The first perspective, also kind of the lowest one, is like life is a race. It's a race with others. So someone has earned so much money, I have to earn more. Someone has had so many trips, I have to do more. Someone has a beautiful wife, I have to have a more beautiful one, or a husband, or another partner, whatever, right? It's a race with someone else, so we can understand that about a lot of the materialistic things, and we say that, okay, I'm not in that race, but we are in a race with others for even good things. For example, sometimes he has done so much charity, I have to do more. I don't have to do charity because I'm it's moving me and I have to help others. I have to do more charity because someone else has done more. So even in good regards, you tend to look at life as a complete race. Every time it's a race with someone else, this is like the lowest perspective of life. It's a practical one. Again, talking about life situations, hierarchy of needs, if you're at the lowest level, you may have to compete with others, and you do, right? It's practical. A second way of looking at life, slightly above it, in fact, a lot above it, is life is the journey of my own self. So it's about me improving as a person. It's about me doing more, having more, doing better, having better, things of that sort. But it's my own journey. The 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 parameters are not defined by others, right? It's a caveat yahan pe. It can be that you're using these words, that life is my own journey, but it could also mean that you're looking at life as your own journey, but you're still looking for validation from others to actually say that, okay, I've progressed in life. And if that is the case, you're still at the first level. You're not at the second level, even if you're using those words. But the second level, we can understand. You look at life as it's my own journey. I don't have to, others are involved, but I don't have to care about what others think about me to realize my own self-worth, right? That is the second perspective of looking at life. The third perspective of looking at life is what you touched there. Now I would say it's one above the other, but it's also third perspective aisa hai ki it's something that encompasses everything. And what is that perspective? Hear me out. Life is like a dance. It's like a music. What do I mean by that? See, the purpose of a dance, the purpose of a music, it's not the end. Nahin? If that was the goal, if that was the goal, all the music awards, all the dance awards would have gone to the person who just ended their dance beautifully. You know, matlab the end step was so good, the ending music was so good that you blew us away. That doesn't happen, right? The purpose of a music, the purpose of a dance is to dance. It's to sing, it's to listen, it's to enjoy. You know, that is the purpose of music and dance. You know, and that is what life is also all about. In the sense that if you look at life as a dance, it's a series of moments and you have to dance at that particular moment, and that's all that matters, right? The story forms itself. The story of what the dance was all about, it forms itself, right? Now there could be those moments in your life when everything happened so magically beautifully that whatever you had choreographed for yourself just happened, right? For an extended period of time, let's say a few years, or like what happened in a previous call. It just happened beautifully, right? But at the end of the call, there was that aberration. Camera nahi chal raha, mic nahi chal raha, whatever, right? Those things are also a part of life, right? It happens. It happens. You were dancing and you wanted to. मेरे साथ तो बहुत होता है. I wanted to move my right hand but left move हो गया. Wanted to smile but frown कर दिया, right? नहीं आता यार dance whatever, but you get it, right? So dance, it's like there would be some moments for you when the dance was just so perfectly choreographed, and or it would look as if it's so beautifully choreographed, it's just happening. On some other moments, it will not be that, but you realize that this is a part of the dance itself, right? The meaning of the dance is all of those individual moments. It's a moment by moment thing. It's not the end of the dance, right? But somehow we, because we are so involved in our stories, we want it to be the best story out there, right? And वो ऐसा लगता है कि story का end बहुत amazing होना चाहिए. That because that is what stories are meant to do, right? The stories are meant to come to an end, give you a beautiful conclusion so that you can draw something from it, right? But that is not what life is all about. Life is more than a story. Life is about a dance. It's like a dance. So the purpose is to dance, right? And if you connected with what you were saying, how many days did you have in your life, or how much life did you have in your days? Like, right, in all of, considering that statement that each single day is like each single step of the dance. So whatever you have to do in this moment, that is all that matters. Do your best in this moment, and your life, your dance, it will take care of itself, right? So
I think that's so like that's such an important concept if you can sit with it and if you can spend some time on it. And I think it's not talked about more. Like sometimes I feel that there could be again so much value could be derived out of teaching or sitting with patients, and like the idea of patience and being patient and being kind and being grateful and having those values, maybe how can we incorporate them more in our society or in our conditioning or the way we grow up or the way we grow on or the way we keep moving with our lives is having more conversations of these sort, having more having being more empathetic towards people in a sense that you can try to understand where they're coming from or trying to understand, because in that journey I believe what a person can, like the extent to a person will go for themselves is very less when compared to the extent they'll go for a society or they'll go for a group or they'll go for another person. Sometimes I feel we are so complicated
caught
or we
up
are so twisted in that manner that we'll do less for ourselves and we'll do more for the community or for the people. So in that sense I sometimes feel ki more of these conversations, more of these ideas and more of these concepts, if people try to sit with them and people try to talk about them, then it kind of makes looking at things and just having a perspective about life, it makes it so much better, it makes it so much clearer that you can kind
That's
of
true.
move
That's
on
true.
and have an opinion of your own about this.
And that's something that we've touched upon so many times in this podcast, right? Utility. Every time you talk about these things, I'm pretty sure if you talk about this to your friends, even who are occupied in either their jobs, in their marriages, in their studies and whatnot, there is something on the other that keeps you occupied, that tells you that all of this philosophy and spirituality and religion and self-awareness and biases and everything, it has no utility in my current life, man. It just has no utility. And
Yeah.
it's coupled with the idea ki there will be a time when there will be a utility, right? So
Yeah.
jab aayega, tab I'll tackle all of this, right? But for almost all of us, when that happens, we are miserable because we are so
Hmm.
used to looking at life from a single perspective, like that donkey we talked about. Ki when that does not serve us anymore, that is when we start looking for answers. And ठीक है, अब उसमें भी you can say जब जागो तब सवेरा, right? Whenever you had to find, you find the answers then. But yeah, the job of a friend, the job of a lover is to actually tell you what is true, is to actually try and awaken you, if at all they see that little spark in you. And if that happens, it happens. If it doesn't happen, well, we move on. Life is like that, you know. It's like those
Do
series
you
of
think,
moments.
yeah, do you think that
Mm.
people talk more about philosophy, or people tend to talk more about Gyan when they're happy or when they're sad? What do you think?
Mm. I think for some people it happens when they're sad, yes, but it's it's a double-edged sword, man. It's like a
Yeah.
lot of people try to let's say if you're really really sad, some people think that if they drink a lot of liquor now, it will
Yeah.
just go away, right?
Yeah.
It might go away in that moment, but it's never the, it's like just a band-aid that is stopping the
Hmm.
blood from flowing, but it's not going to heal you, right?
Yeah.
And in that sense, if you're sad and you're talking about, I don't know, maybe you start to use a lot of things as a band-aid. Like for example, a lot of people believe this idea of sab moh maya hai, right?
Hmm.
Sab moh maya hai bol ke you just think ki अरे सब बेकार है ये, um, falling into relationships, talking about everything philosophical and सब मोह माया छोड़ो क्या फर्क पड़ता है and all of that. So
Yeah.
it's like we're doing the same things that we do with stuff like liquor and drugs. We do the same things even with philosophy if we are sad.
Hmm.
So but it can also mean, I said it's a double-edged sword. So if you're sad and you're actually now understanding that, man, something is really messed up and I need to fix it now, right? If that is the motivation that comes in you, and if that is what is taking you towards philosophy, man, there is no better moment for you. I mean, this is where
Hmm.
you have been planted and you will only go up from there, right? So it depends. If you're happy on the other side, I think happy in the sense that if things in your life situation are aligned, those
Hmm.
basic needs are met, and you're understanding that, okay, I've achieved such and such. I don't need to worry about my survival now. Maybe I can start looking at life. Maybe I can start looking at what were those religious and spiritual people talking about? What did the Buddha say? What did Jesus Christ say? And whatnot. And maybe that leads you towards a more expansive understanding of life. And then you can maybe even end up um, let's say transpiring that to other people, right? Because that is what I see happening for a lot of us. You heal yourself and then you heal others, right? So
Hmm.
it can happen on both ends of the spectrum. Even if you're happy, even if you're sad, it can happen on both ends of the spectrum, right?
Have you read Naval Ravikant's that Almanac of Naval Ravikant, that book?
Mm. I've heard of him, I've heard of the book, but I haven't read it.
So I also didn't like read it in a traditional sense. I
uh,
finished the book. I just read
mm,
bits and pieces and the parts that I found
uh,
interesting. And this is the journey I've
mm-hmm,
been on with books now. I just read
mm.
only the portions that I find worth
That you
reading.
find utility
So
in.
yeah, I don't know that I
uh,
find truth in,
mm,
maybe. I don't know. But these two
good
words
good
are very, very, very useful, man. Like I just
mm,
think that there's such a good lens to measure things or to look at things on from
mm,
now on.
mm,
Is like, am I
mm.
trying to find truth or am I trying to find utility? And you can choose one purpose
Yes.
and you can go to that extent, and maybe that will serve you
Yeah.
well. But
Mm,
coming
mm,
back to
mm,
what I was talking about, that book, Naval
mm,
Ravikant's Almanac of
mm,
Naval Ravikant. So he has two sections in that
mm,
book: how to make money and how to be happy. So happiness and money
mm,
are the two sections in that book. And he
mm,
talks
mm,
about happiness, like one of his when he was on the Joe Rogan podcast, he also was talking about
mm,
that if you are so smart, why aren't you so happy? So if
mm,
someone is
mm,
so smart, then how come you
mm.
haven't figured out how to be happy? It's like
Mm, mm.
no one not wants to be happy, right? It's a state of
Yes.
being in which you'll feel good, you'll feel
Mm, mm,
just
mm,
in place, aligned, and
mm,
everything.
mm, mm, mm,
So
mm.
what do you think that sometimes maybe over communicating about ideas or philosophy and talking about things kind of takes a detour from uh, actually being happy, being present, being appreciative of the moment, and trying to more like kind of what do they have that word called, precision से बिल्कुल किसी चीज को एकदम nitpick करके बनाना.
हाँ
And sometimes you
हाँ
get
हाँ हाँ
too
yeah
deep into that. So this is what I feel about the philosophers. Like most of the philosophers, I've never heard a philosopher ending a very their life story ending in a very happy or in a very
Mm,
sunset
mm,
kind of
mm,
manner. It's
mm.
almost everyone, they died by a suicide, or they drank
Oh
till they
yeah.
were dead, or they lost their mind in the process. Sometimes I feel ki for the average person, it's just you
Mm,
have a little bit of this and you can just be blissfully ignorant about the
mm,
rest of the stuff.
mm. See, that's one way of how I want to answer it is ki, see, we really want to optimize for being happy, right?
Yeah.
Happy in the sense, जैसे you look happy right now, man, right? मतलब
Hmm.
you look as if there is a lot of pleasure and आपको अच्छा लग रहा है, and you feel
Yeah.
happy right now. We want to optimize for that. We want us to always be in that state. But if we talk about what is practical, it's that you cannot be always in that state. Right? It
Hmm.
just never happens. It can never happen for any person that you're always happy, right? So one of the things that should be taught to everyone should rather be कि life flows in the form of sine curves. सबको पता होना चाहिए. Even kids should know that. Kids know that intuitively. They don't have the words for it, but it goes up and down, right? So you cannot always be optimizing for being happy, because when life comes
Yeah.
at you and you're at the downward curve, what do you do then? Do you just blame others? Do you just blame the situation? Or do you take hold of it and bolo ki nahi, I'll take it to the next upward curve? You know, you cannot always be happy. So that is one angle I would want to say. But I think the way Naval would have used the word happy, it would not have just meant feeling good overall. It's like
Hmm.
if you are in an acceptance state, an acceptance of also what is, in the sense that it goes up and down, right? Even if I'm down, an acceptance key, okay, I'm down right now, I'll remain equanimous, and things will look up maybe in the future. It will happen, right? What I have to do right now is all that matters. I'll do that. And in this kind of a state, you are in a more equanimous state with life in general. And that is happiness in one perspective, you know. But what you were touching upon was what we say in Hindi ki baat ki khal nikal de. You said so many things, you said so much कि you never really got to the point, which is what
Yeah.
usually happens. It happens because, see, even when we are talking right now, we don't really have an agenda in mind, right? We're coming up
Yeah.
with things. आप कुछ पूछ रहे हो, I'm saying something. We don't have a particular agenda in mind. If we were to do that and only stick to that, we'll get to somewhere, right? We'll
Hmm.
get to something if you want to talk about a specific thing. Hmm? But if you want to talk about something as broad as philosophy, like we talked
Hmm.
about last time as well, philosophy just means love of wisdom. There is wisdom to be had in so many angles. Ki, how do you stop? How do you really stop? You cannot stop there, right? So, in fact, वहां पे जाके where you stop is maybe you draw a line at what is really having utility. You know, that is maybe where you can actually draw a
Yeah.
boundary. Ki,
Yeah.
if you cannot see any utility beyond this, maybe just stop talking, man. in some sense, so ऐसा कर सकते हो, है ना? पर वो it's again a double-edged sword. It's again a double-edged sword. If you are not seeing a utility, maybe there still is some, right? So
Listen,
हाँ.
I had a very crazy thought once that
Mm,
sometimes imagine this. So I read this
mm,
quote in a book. I think it was from Buddha or someone, some old philosopher only, that
mm,
every person that you meet on this planet or in your life is trying to teach you the perfect level of patience, the perfect level of love, perfect level of wisdom. So every encounter that you'll have with everyone on this planet in your life, everyone is
mm,
trying to
mm,
teach you, to just get you to the perfect level of patience, love, wisdom, kindness. So imagine now, from that context, now every interaction you've had, everyone who's trying to maybe piss you off at that moment, every situation where
yeah,
you felt unpleasant, they were just trying to
yeah,
teach you, to get you to that level. So
yeah.
yesterday or maybe some days back, I was thinking about this, that what if, like, it's kind of just crazy to just imagine, but this is like a good exercise, mental
Mm,
exercise, that
mm,
what if you imagine, if you see people around you and you can try to think of them as maybe everyone could be just a version of how you could have turned out to be. So you look at the world and you see so
Hmm.
many reflections. Imagine like
Hmm.
8 billion reflections of Chetan Narang. Every person
Hmm.
on this
Hmm.
planet is one possibility of how you could have turned out to be.
Hmm. Hmm.
And there's
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
there's endless because there's endless life creativity. There are so many you know attributes to a person that you can't contain them. And
Hmm.
again, this is very crazy, but it felt like a good mental exercise that everyone on this planet is just another reflection of how you could have
Yes.
been.
This is absolutely true, man. You've kind of hit on, I would say, one of the deepest roots of even spirituality for that matter. Because it is actually true. If you let go of, see, we started with the idea of God. Let's try to uncover that idea a bit more, and I'll tell you why I'm saying that. See, if we are talking about what is true, if we are talking, you remember we started the conversation of God, and we started by saying ki, if there was a creator, आप पूछते कि is there a
Hmm.
creator's creator, so we are understanding कि the idea of there being a creator away from the creation is false. It's an idea that we have created. We can let go of that. We can understand that things just exist.
Yeah.
Does that make me an atheist? No, I'll come at that. If we want to inquire about what is true, forget God, forget who created everything. Let's just talk about what is true. The only thing that maybe we can agree on is that I exist. What do I
Yeah.
mean by that? Even if you are in a simulation, let's say there's this idea, right? सब लोगों को ऐसा लगता है, कुछ लोगों को ऐसा लगता है कि we are living in a simulated world. It's a computer simulation, right? Even if that is true, even if all of this is a simulation, I exist in that simulation. So the only
Hmm.
thing I can be absolutely certain of is that I exist, right? That is the only thing you can be absolutely certain about. Correct? You're understanding, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Following me? You
Hmm.
know? So now, if you want to explore what is true, you have to explore your I. You have to explore yourself,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Right. So if you try to uncover those layers, if I ask you who are you, you will say Ripudaman, right?
Yeah.
But Ripudaman is a name that your parents gave you, right?
Yeah.
What else? What else is true about you? Who are you
Hmm.
really, right? You have to uncover all of those things. And when you go deep down into those roots, you will really just understand ki, like you were mentioning, there are so many attributes to a person ki, let's say there are, put a number to it, 60,000 attributes, right? And
Hmm.
for every single person, it comes out in different degrees and different permutations and combinations.
Yeah.
So in
Yeah.
that idea, the difference between you and me, the difference between a person and another person is one of degree, in the sense that one of those parameters is more
Yeah.
tuned up in you and is less tuned up in me, or is
It's
equally
like a
tuned up in
matrix
both of
and
us.
it has different values. Yeah.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly. Right. So you can understand that is really how similar you are to almost everyone around you.
Oh,
Right.
yes. Makes sense.
You're
Yeah.
not that different from others. Right. And
Hmm.
that the idea that inspires in me is a lot of compassion, right? Because you can understand कि this person is going through something that maybe I do not really understand, in the sense that I've not experienced it, but I can understand in the sense that I can visualize कि if such and such was a case with me, maybe I would have also reacted in this manner, right? So
Hmm.
that makes you compassionate, that makes you empathetic towards the plight of other human beings, right? And if that is not a utility, I don't know what is, man, right? And we arrived at a utility starting from the truth. you know
Wow. Yeah.
we were uncovering truth, and we arrived at a utility, right? This is the exercise that philosophy is supposed to uncover, right? We're not supposed to talk about philosophers. We're not supposed to talk about कि इस भगवान की पूजा करके क्या होता है. Do we need
Hmm.
to worship this god? Do we need to keep so many fasts and what all? मतलब जो भी चीजें हम religion के नाम पे करते हैं, everything that you see being practiced in the name of religion is basically games that the ego plays. It's
Hmm.
basically games that we human beings play, and that is the reason why people who are actually looking to get to the truth turn atheists. I did that
Hmm.
myself. Because I could see that this is all bullshit, man. I could see
Hmm.
that this is not the truth. It cannot be the truth, right? I'll say something that might offend people, right? But I'll say that anyway. You did not have to convince me that
Hmm.
a monkey did not go and lift an entire mountain and bring it to from North India to South India or whatnot. You won't have to convince me that that is a story, right? You're getting it, right? I'm saying something that is offensive, but it's true,
Yeah.
man. We should not be having those conversations in 2023, right? It's like if I told you that there is um, Albus Dumbledore lives in such and such a place. How will you convince me otherwise? I have just convinced myself that Albus Dumbledore lives. Albus Dumbledore was a character in a story. Even if the story was written on, if the underlying story was a true story, Albus Dumbledore, those words represent a character in the story, man. It cannot be important. What is important is what is true. Talk to me
Yeah.
about the truth, right? And that is where, if you're talking about the idea of God, start with the idea of what is true, not with the idea of who said what is true. And then I'll respect that person, or I'll respect that God. I'll start worshiping that God, which is where people go wrong. You know, like I said, in I think a few days back, I messaged you, right? One of the key things that is wrong with religion is more focus on the messengers than the
Yeah.
message.
Than the message. Yeah, of
Because
course.
we want to worship gods, we want to worship who came to us as a messenger, right? Damn it, listen to the message and act on the message. That is what the real messengers also want, right? But हो ये जाता है कि we start focusing so much on the message, on the
Yeah.
messenger, क्योंकि that is what makes that idea of ego feel safe, you know. Oh, there
Yeah.
is a god above us who's going to take care of me. I'm going to worship him. I'm going to fall down to him on my knees and all of that. And if you don't do that, I'm going to make you do that. In the name of love, I'm going to make you do that because I love you. I want you to fear that God. You can see right through the game. You can see right through the game. And that is why people turn atheists, right? But the level goes a little bit more deeper, right? It's like there is this quote, I don't remember the exact words, but it says, the first touch of natural sciences, the first sip from the cup of natural sciences will make you an atheist. But at the end of the cup, God is waiting for you. And that is absolutely true. That's absolutely true. And why do I say that? I'm going to keep going now. See, if you're an atheist right now in the present world, what you're basically doing is you're rejecting the misinterpretations and the misrepresentations of the word God, right? You're rejecting
Yeah.
all of them, which is right. You have to do that. But the game doesn't stop there, man. You have to go deeper. Just because you proved a misinterpretation to be wrong doesn't mean you now have the truth. It is still
Yeah.
work left to be done. Get to the truth. And when you get to the truth, you get to God. You get to God. That is what all the real messengers who said things like Jesus Christ, Buddha, I think even Prophet Muhammad, all of those messengers, Krishna, Ram, everyone pointed to the same message. And you have to get there kind of on your own. It's a journey that you have to take, but you have to do that. Otherwise, you are kind of superficial, and that is what is all being done by almost everyone. We write
Yeah.
books about so many different things, religion ke naam pe, but almost everyone is disenfranchised because that idea of religion is basically just based on one aspect, which is bhakti yoga. It's an aspect of worshipping an external god, worshipping a personal god. But of course, that cannot be true. That cannot be the last level. And in fact, even within Hinduism, man, if you read, if you want to actually explore Hinduism, want to actually read, see, I don't want to talk about Hinduism. I'll say, if you actually want to read about what is true, read Swami Vivekananda. Just
Okay.
have a little dive into what he talked about in his books, especially the book called Gyan Yoga, where he will not tell you what Hinduism is all about. He will talk about what is true. He will not have to mention all the different gods to actually lead you to God, right? Because he understands that all of those gods, all of those forms are actually just a means to an end, not the end in themselves.
Yeah.
वो जो सारे means हैं, Hanuman, Krishna, Ram, all of these forms are a means to the end, not the end in themselves. एंड दैट
Yeah.
इज व्हाट वी मिस आउट ऑन. अगर हम बातें सिर्फ इन फॉर्म्स की करते रहें, तो वी टेंड टू स्टार्ट टू सी दैट दिस इज द एंड आल्सो, बट इट्स नॉट.
Yeah, you miss
राइट?
out on the
आई थिंक
idea and you need to step back
हाँ.
to maybe get to the present way. You need to take two steps back
यस.
to move ahead.
या.
It's that
या.
ideology.
एग्जैक्ट.
Sometimes I feel like
हाँ.
once I was also wondering about this, that if only I can stay with my breath, I would have stayed throughout my life. Like if only I
Mm,
can be conscious of each and every breath that I
mm,
take, then I would have
mm,
stayed present in my whole life. And you
yeah.
can't just do that only if you were able to.
Uh,
Then all life becomes is just another breath, right? Like imagine
exactly.
how much anxiety does it take away, that you just have to take the next correct breath, and that's all you have to do, because that's all you can do.
And that is the solution, man, to a lot of depression and anxiety that humans are facing in this age. You know, we can't get a moment's rest to actually sit back and breathe. Laptop se hate to phone se hate to a triggering conversation in the news se
Yeah.
hate to a triggering conversation with someone who was watching that damn news. तो खत्म ही नहीं. You never take a deep breath and realize कि I am projecting so much on the world is projecting so much on me. Maybe I should just take a step back and unlearn जो चीजें मैंने सीख
Yeah.
ली हैं, because that is what is blocking me now, right? That is the solution of so much depression and anxiety. And again, that is the work I do with people now. For a lot of
Hmm.
people, man, like we talked about in the beginning, right? Whether it is the external world influencing you or whether it is you influencing your own decisions, the actions always lie at you influencing your own decisions. But it's a matter of perspective. You have to first unlearn the idea that the
Hmm.
external world is, all of those people are trying to act out how you are acting here, right? So you
Yeah.
cannot
Yeah.
control them, you cannot control them, but आप यहाँ पे अपने actions को control करो. Try to look at what is happening within you. Why are these thoughts coming up? And let go of the thoughts that are not serving you, let go of the biases that are not serving you, and slowly but surely even those thoughts stop popping up into your mind. That is how it works. That is self growth,
Amazing.
man. That
Yeah, amazing
mm,
conversation with you today, Chetan. It actually blew my mind away, because we didn't plan going from one place
mm,
to the other. We just thought we'll have a sit and talk about
yeah.
God. But it went
Mm,
from creativity to curiosity to life and philosophy and whatnot. And the two words
yeah.
that I actually am taking away with it is truth and utility.
Yeah.
They're so impactful once you think about them. And everything can
Yes.
be viewed by the lens, or that, what do you call, the taraju, in through
Mm-hmm.
which you can either check the what level of truth are you looking for and what level of utility are you looking for. I think we
Correct,
can
correct.
probably name this episode on those terms as well.
Yes, definitely. And in closing, I would also like to say that, the idea of God, the truth about God rather, is something that I have explored a lot and I've shared in a lot of my podcast episodes. In fact, a third of my podcast is dedicated to the idea of God, the idea of
Hmm.
understanding true religion and true spirituality. It takes time though. I mean, even here when we were talking about it, it takes a lot of segues, क्योंकि the idea itself is complicated and we human beings are so complicated right now कि simple चीजें हमें समझ नहीं आती आराम से.
Yeah.
तो but I would like to say to your audience that if anyone is interested in actually exploring and understanding, letting go of your own biases and understanding what really is the idea of God, the truth about God, they can check out my podcast or they can
Yeah,
reach
of
out to me. In
course.
fact, I'm always open to honest and engaging conversations.
Yeah, of
So
course. I would urge anyone to who wants to get like another insight on how perspectives can shift should definitely check out your content. And the way you presented it,
mm,
so simple and it's so intuitive, that I
thank
sometimes
you, man.
find myself getting very intellectually stimulated by hearing what you talk about. It was great
Thank you,
talking to you,
man. Thank you.
Chetan. Thank you so much for taking the time out to do this. And
Same here,
yeah.
man. Lovely conversation as always. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Chetan.
Until
Bye.
next time, peace out.
Yeah.